the idea in Nopoor is to compare how different demographic trajectories affect poverty reduction, or could affect economic growth and poverty reduction.
What does that mean for somebody?
So that means, in the case of some Asian countries, it has been shown
Excuse-moi. C'est bon? Okay, so trajectories you said, but we have probably also people who are not so familiar with this.
Yeah, sure.
With these special words.
So, in some Asian countries, it has been shown that the changes in demographic trends probably affected economic growth. So, what it means is that when the fertility rate starts to go down as part of the demographic transition, which is a process through which all of the countries will go at some point. Most countries have gone through a demographic transition, which means a decrease in the mortality rates and then a decrease in the fertility rates. And so in some Asian countries that have gone already through this process, it has been shown that the second phase of the demographic transition, which corresponds to a drop in fertility rates, contributes to economic growth through the fact that for a moment there is a strong increase in the number of people who can work compared to the people who don't work. We call it dependency ratio. And that drop in the dependency ratio increases savings and increases female labor participation and increases investment in human capital like education. And so the project, the Nopoor project, within the Nopoor project, we want to try and see whether what has been shown for some Asian countries also can be shown from some Latin American countries. So we want to check the literature. No, it's not new research, but trying to see what has been done, and then look at African data and see how what has been shown in these continents can apply to what African countries are going through. Because we know that they are going through this demographic transition, maybe not as fast as expected, but they are going through that demographic transition. And some of them are now entering the second phase where at least fertility rates are going to stabilize and then at some point drop. So we want to see whether the relationships that can drive this contribution of demographic changes to economic growth, which is called the demographic dividend. We want to try and see whether the relationships that make this demographic dividend possible could also apply to Africa.
From your point of view, you have a lot of experience from this part of the world, from West Africa. What happens if does it create other problems when the fertility rate goes down? So, because there is all this situation of having networks that you need a lot of children in order to secure your pension, basically, and secure your social security. Somehow, are your kids? So, is there what is at the moment the state of art in this discussion? What happens when people start having less children?
Well, people start having less children because they feel that they can invest more in those children, because the educational system allows children to go through and accumulate human capital, and also people feel that they can have less children because mortality rates went down, and having more children is also a way of securing against mortality risks. So it's not something exogenous. It's within a specific context that people start thinking, okay, I'm going to have less children and invest more in their education, and they will be helping me out at some point. And also there is a transition, as we also are going to study within the Nopoor project, that governments are trying to put in place protection systems, and hopefully that is also a source of security, of additional security, that makes big families less relevant for protection, and maybe transfer some of the protection that comes from within the families to the government.
Is there a big gap between urban and rural situations in regard to fertility? Is that an urban or rural difference?
Yeah, there is a big difference. The fertility rates are much higher in rural areas. There is also in the rural areas there is another justification for big families, which is related to a need for labor in the fields, and power comes from having many people available to work farms. So yeah, these are complex phenomena, and this is a complex transformation going on, and we are trying to see. Not whether this will happen, because we think at some point it will happen, but how, if it happens, it will affect other outcomes like female labor participation, for instance.
Female labor participation means?
How women contribute to economic activity. So you can measure that, trying to figure out whether women work or don't work. So that's the basic question. But then there are different types of occupations. We can show. I mean, it has been shown that in farming activities, women actually work a lot. When there is a transformation of the economy towards more urban jobs, women tend to decrease their participation because they have to take care of their children, and their children cannot stay close to them. And then at some point, when education goes up again, females start working again more or contributing more to income, and together with the fertility drop as well.
So what would be the recommendation, or what from your point of view is kind of a pathway into the future in this field?
At this point, it's difficult to talk in terms of recommendation. It is, I think, important to see how females enter the labor market and understand what the constraints are, and try and figure out whether the government can put in place some schemes that will help them work if they want to work, care of their children, and obviously offer efficient and good educational system.